Hello and welcome. Today we are going to be talking about the setup for body positioning in side-lying work using the reformer. You can use this setup for side-lying footwork, side-lying arm work, or side-lying legs in straps. And it's really important to have this setup for your clients right out of the gate when they're very first learning this exercise, because laying on your side is a totally different experience than laying on your back or even on your front side. And laying on your side, there's so many different parts that clients are trying to figure out how to maneuver, where to put. So when you are direct and clear with your clients on how they can feel the most comfortable in this side-lying position and how to set their bodies up for the most optimal alignment for their exercise, they're going to feel more comfortable. They're going to understand what they're supposed to be doing. They're not going to be left with question marks in their brain. And it's just going to help them get even more out of their exercise. So when you choose side-lying exercises on the reformer, here is your setup. First, as the instructor, before you even put your clients into this position, you are assessing the width of their shoulders, specifically from the ear to the end of their shoulders. What is that space? Because that is the space that's going to need to get filled when they're laying down on their side. Now, sometimes just the headrest lifted in the highest position is sufficient to put their neck in a fairly neutral position, because that's what we're looking for. How can you get the neck in a fairly neutral position so they're not laying down on their side? If they're really broad-shouldered and the headrest is up, if their head is tilted sideways like this, then that's not optimal position for their cervical spine, right? So as best we can, we're looking to get their spine in a neutral position in side lying for their best body work and for them to feel the most comfortable as well. So you have a couple of tools lying on the side. You can either have the headrest all the way up to the high position and just let the head rest on the headrest if they have a fairly narrow shoulder width, or if you have a squishy ball, this one is like an 8 or 9 inch inflatable ball, that could go on the headrest right between the ear and the headrest. Also, if you have a pillow, this one happens to be a foldable pillow, so you have two options. This is a little bit deeper, this is a little bit more shallow. Sometimes I like this option, the shallow option, with the medium headrest, only because, and I kind of squish it in between the shoulder blocks, only because of this shape. So if you can see this shape, it's a little bit wider here, and that fits beautifully right into this neck space, and then with this up, and then you're lying on the headrest. So that's where I'm going to, that's what I'm going to use today for myself. So I'm going to squish this in here. Now that's the first thing that you are looking at as an instructor. You don't need to go through all of that with your client. You just want to set up the first tool that you think would be the best, and then adjust later on if it doesn't look like quite the right fit. So I'm going to put my headrest on the middle setting with my pillow in place, and notice I squish the pillow so that it is flush with the shoulder blocks. And the reason that is because when clients lie down, oftentimes they don't know where their shoulders are supposed to be. And a lot of times clients end up with their shoulders in between the shoulder blocks, and we actually want them behind, just like when they're lying on their back. So that's the first thing. Ask clients to lie down on their side. So here we go. Let's get into position. You want to lie down in the center of the carriage. Bring the shoulder just in front of the head pillow or shoulder blocks. Bring your feet up. I'm going to set up like I'm doing side-lying footwork. So I'm going to put one foot up on the foot bar. And then clients often ask, what do I do with my hands? So direct their hand placement as soon as they lay down. So as soon as they lay down, take the bottom hand to the peg. If you don't have a peg up here, you can hold onto the shoulder block as well. But if you have a peg, like on a balanced body reformer, it's a very nice, comfortable position for the bottom arm. And then the top arm comes on top of the shoulder block. Now what's nice about this is it gives the shoulders something to do while you're in this position. So hands in place. Now adjust your shoulders so that the bottom shoulder is stacked directly underneath the top shoulder. So instead of like when you're laying in bed, how you kind of let the shoulder roll forward, and now I'm kind of in this tilted position, that is not going to give optimal alignment for the spine, right? So let's stack the shoulders. And then now it's time to move. We'll get the rest sorted out in a moment. Go ahead and push the carriage all the way out. Now with the carriage out, ask your clients to push out and stay out the first repetition. Get their footing right, get their heel where they want it, unless you're directing their foot placement. And then from here, see if they can push the carriage out any farther. So what happens typically is the bottom oblique is not active at this point. It's just kind of resting into the carriage. So watch this as I push the carriage out just a little bit more. Now my hips are more stacked, right? So before I was here, and you can see my hip is hiking. And then as I push out, my hips are now stacked. So it doesn't really matter if the bottom obliques are lifted off the carriage or not, because that just has more to do with our body shape rather than our activation. So I just ask clients to push out far enough to now have shoulders stacked, hips stacked, bottom obliques are active, and I ask them, can you feel how you're really long and your bottom obliques are active? Now the goal is to keep that activation, so that way they're strengthened and active in their whole core, right? All 4 areas of their core, and keep that as you bend the top knee to come all the way in, or as far as you can, keeping heel down if that's your exercise choice, and then press back out and pause, check in, see if there's any more to stretch again, and then each time for the first 2 or 3 repetitions, ask them to push out, pause, is there any more? And then let them just kind of continue the flow. So they'll go out and in. Now, as they're moving, a few things that you want to look for alignment, now that you've got them in this setup, is you're going to make sure they're working their hip hinge. The next piece to watch from above as the instructor is that they're not tucking their tailbone under in this posterior tilt, right? So this is my posterior tilt. And then finding neutral, press out, stretch, ask them to come in with a hip hinge, and it might even feel like they're sticking their butt out just a little bit, and tell them that's okay. Whatever cues you typically use for a hip hinge or finding neutral pelvis, that's what we're looking for. Now, if you're doing side-lying arm work, then the legs would just kind of rest on the carriage. Let the clients know that their feet might touch the frame. So give them that knowledge ahead of time so they can either flex their feet or lift their toes. And then if you have clients with foot in strap, side lying, same thing, it's just going to be the bottom foot. So give them that information. So I hope that was really helpful for you in getting your side lying set up. And when you can teach your clients this the first time or the first several times that they do a side lying exercise, it starts to sink in a little bit more, just like any other exercise. When you can teach the setup as its own exercise, really, they start to understand the importance, why the setup is important. And now here's a little tip. When you flip over to side 2, clients immediately want to jump into the movement, but ask them to pause and make sure they have the best setup for their body on side number 2, just like they did on side number 1. They don't have to take as much time, but oftentimes side number 2, their brain already knows the movement and they're ready to just jump right in it. But you're going to ask them to take a moment, pause, make sure they can feel those obliques in activation, that the core is set in the front, that they're working the hip hinge, the shoulders are stacked, and then they're ready to just continue on with their movement once they get all those pieces in place. If you enjoyed this sequence, be sure and hit that like and subscribe button. Then check out my on-demand library of Pilates classes linked below. See you next time.